1039 LI News Radio. People, power,
I thought this was America.
and politics.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
With Fred Towle on 1039 LI News Radio.
Good afternoon and welcome back to People, Power, and Politics here on LI News Radio 103.9. My name is Fred Towle and I'm the host of your show here today, broadcasting live from Islip MacArthur Airport on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. It's 50 degrees out there. Weather's finally getting nicer, which we're really looking forward to. As I had mentioned yesterday, we took the show on the road Monday, and we were at the Suffolk County Democratic Committee's fundraiser. We had a chance to listen to presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. And tomorrow, we're going to be fortunate to take the show on the road again tomorrow night. We'll do our regular show between 12 and 2 here at the studio, and then we'll be leaving to head down to Patchogue to get through security and to deal with the crowds and the mobs that'll be attending the Suffolk County Republican Party fundraiser at the Emporium in Patchogue, where Donald Trump will be the featured speaker. We'll, of course, look to cover that live from the Emporium in Patchogue as well. And then Friday and Monday, I'm going to be off. So my man, Tom Shalero, is going to be covering for me. Our host on Eye on Crime and my co-host occasionally here during the week. Tom will be filling in on Friday and Monday for me. We're going off to Rhode Island to take a look at a college for my son. So just need a little traveling time and a couple of the odds and ends. So looking forward to a couple of days off, and I'm sure Tom will have some jammed-packed guests on the show and be talking about some of our hot topics. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about law enforcement and the budget here in Suffolk County. One of Suffolk County's oldest and longest law enforcement agencies are the Suffolk County Sheriffs, and I'm pleased to welcome John and Artie in the studio. They're the president and executive vice president of the Suffolk County Deputy Sheriff's Officers Union. And they've been in the news lately with contract issues and staffing issues and budget issues and lawsuit issues, unfortunately. And we're going to dedicate today's show talking about that and what the deputy sheriffs actually do here in Suffolk County. So, gentlemen, welcome to the studio.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks. Good morning.
No problem. Good afternoon. Appreciate you guys coming in. I obviously have a very good handle of the important role that the deputy sheriffs play here in Suffolk County. But, John, why don't we start with you? Why don't you give us a little description of what it is to be a deputy sheriff and what are some of the responsibilities of the men and women who hold those jobs?
Well, thank you. Well, one of the things, before coming to Suffolk County, I was a New York City police officer. And when I came over to become a deputy sheriff, a lot of people would ask, what exactly does a deputy do? And even now, I'm now in my 20th year in law enforcement, and even now I've had elected officials ask, well, how are things going in the jail? And whenever that question's asked, we usually politely say good or, something along those lines. But the bottom line is we have no function in the jail whatsoever. So a lot of people really just don't understand what exactly a deputy does, and it's a multifaceted job. We wear a lot of different hats, and certainly the bread and butter of what we do, prisoner transportation. We do transporting of prisoners within the county, within the state, even out of the state. When it comes to court appearances, medical visits, if there's funerals, or any prisoners who are remanded to the custody of the sheriff on the East End. We also have a detention facility in 1st District Court in Central Islip, all pre-arraignment prisoners. So anyone who's arrested within the police district will go through district court and be arraigned. And also prisoners from the facilities, Riverhead, Yap, Hank, will be brought into district court for their court appearances. We also have our civil enforcement. Now, civil is going to do the enforcement of all civil actions throughout the county, and the one that obviously most people are familiar with would be evictions, but we're also doing bank levies, civil summonses, things of this nature. We have our Domestic Violence Bureau. Now, what they do is they're going to serve all orders of protection throughout the county. if the order requires the seizure of weapons, pistol licenses, or an exclusion of a certain party, we would enforce that as well. And an adjunct to that is our Criminal Contempt Bureau, and where we have deputies who will apprehend persons who have warrants stemming from family court offenses. We have a warrant squad, and they'll do enforcement of all the family court warrants throughout the county. Criminal Investigations Bureau. So any felony charges that would stem from an arrest that was effected by a deputy sheriff or within the correctional facility. So this would be the same as your detective bureau. Instead of using the term detective in the sheriff's office, we call them investigators. So the investigators in the Criminal Investigations Bureau will handle the felony cases. Our Pistol License Bureau, that's going to be the issuance of pistol licenses within the 5 East End towns. We have our canine units. They're utilized by various agencies throughout the county. We have a working Marine unit, and they will assist agencies, again, throughout the county. They also work cooperatively with the Coast Guard, performing safety inspections on vessels and doing all kinds of marine enforcement. We have deputies who perform commercial vehicle enforcement. So you have deputies who are certified as level 1 inspectors, working cooperatively with the Department of Transportation, NCON police, local police, state police, doing commercial enforcement throughout the county. And this is an important thing. When you see the amount of trucks that are throughout the county, you want to make sure that they're being operated safely. Recently, we were given grant money for a DWI unit. That was through Suffolk County Stop DWI. So now what we have is 3 deputy sheriffs who are certified drug recognition experts, and I'll talk more about what that is later. But these deputies have a special certification where any agency who makes an arrest for DWI drugs, they will perform a post-arrest standardized and systematic evaluation of the person, where they'll be able to determine, is this person impaired by drugs, and if so, which category or categories is this person being affected by. We have our own Academy Bureau where we do in-service training to deputies, correction officers, all peace officer certifications. We have our own firearms training. We're doing ATV patrols throughout the Pine Barrens. Again, this is something that we're doing with other agencies, working cooperatively with state and local agencies. We have bicycle patrols. We have a motorcycle detail, our own personnel investigations, our own Internal Affairs Bureau, and we're an accredited agency. So for a 250-member job, we wear a lot of different hats.
So, John, you've got basically at this point 250 deputy sheriffs, men and women that work in Suffolk County.
Correct.
That seems like a really small number for the volume of responsibilities. I mean, you mentioned the Marine unit. Now, that Marine unit is working in eastern Suffolk County, so it's all of the, I would imagine as we approach Memorial Day and we move into the summer, that's going to be the busiest peak for that unit. Yeah,
obviously this is our busier time of the year, and they're going to be working. Mostly they concentrate on the East End, but they will go throughout the county. Right.
Now, you mentioned motorcycle units, you mentioned, some of the programs that you have. A lot of those programs seem to be proactive as opposed to reactive.
Yes.
Which is nice. That normally doesn't happen in law enforcement. I mean, right. The general police go from call to call. They don't get that opportunity per se to get into the classrooms and to get in with the students and to get into community-based organizations and try to promote, better behavior and promote safety. Right. That sounds like, the sheriff's office is doing that much more aggressively, which seems like a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the role of the deputy has changed exponentially throughout the years. It's growing by leaps and bounds, and the sheriff has been very innovative in coming up with different things that provide good PR for the sheriff's office.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most people think, like you said, that all you handle is the jail. That's actually the corrections officers, right. Men and women, that handle that. You obviously handle the transport, of prisoners to and from court, to and from police stations, I guess, or doctor's appointments or other particular issues. And then it seems like, there's a lot of other duties that fall into your jurisdiction. Obviously, I guess there's instances where both groups, the county police and the sheriff's office work together, I would assume, things where there's a mutual interest or activity.
Yeah, absolutely. And the role of the sheriff's office mostly is to provide assistance to other agencies. So being a county-wide agencies, a lot of times you will overlap into be it the police district or the 5 East End towns, what have you, because we will go from Montauk all the way to the Nassau border just in our daily job functions.
No question. Now, Artie, let's talk a little bit about you. How long have you been a deputy sheriff in Suffolk?
Thanks again for having us here
anytime.
this afternoon.
It's National, I was noticing on the sheriff's webpage, National Law Enforcement Week as well.
Yes.
National Public Safety Telecommunications Week.
Yes.
So.
And you mentioned in the introduction that we are one of the longest law enforcement agencies in the county, and that is true, over 300 years of law enforcement in the sheriff's office. So I started in 1997, May of 97, Cinco de Mayo actually, as a correction officer here in Suffolk County. So I worked in the Riverhead Maximum Security Facility for 7 years. In 2004, I transferred over and became a deputy sheriff. And so as John was speaking earlier, I just wanted to add also the sheriff's office runs the Peace Officer Academy here in Suffolk County. So the correction officers, they go to our Sheriff's Academy to be certified peace officers, and any other outside agency that has peace officers, they would go through our Sheriff's Academy also.
What groups would that be, for example? I mean, villages, towns?
Villages, Bay Constables, of the like, or anyone that has their requests with the Sheriff's Office, I'm sure he would, gladly put them through our Sheriff's Academy.
Right. And you just had some people that graduated, if I'm not mistaken, too.
We did. We had 14 deputy sheriffs in the last police academy. All our deputy sheriffs go through the Suffolk County Police Academy, and they're certified by the Suffolk County Police Academy. So we just had 14 new deputies, and they're right now. They went to what we call sheriff school for a week, and they'll be out field training for the next few weeks also.
And that's great. You're listening to People, Power, and Politics here on LI News Radio 103.9. I'm your host, Fred Towle, and of course, if you have any questions or comments on a subject that we're talking about today, the deputy sheriffs and the sheriff's office in Suffolk County, or any of the news and issues of the day, give us a call at 631-451-1039. That's 631-451-1039. So, John, obviously, sheriff's office plays a vital role. It's a constitutional officer in the offices of the county of Suffolk. It can't be eliminated. You cover, eastern Brookhaven to, out to Shelter Island, Montauk, theoretically. You guys also have, countywide powers and are dealing with, issues throughout the county. As you mentioned, the aviation unit and obviously transporting of prisoners and serving of, now you guys do judgments and orders of protection too, right? You do the service?
Correct. Yeah. So all service of civil actions and orders of protection go on by the sheriff's office. Artie and myself actually were assigned to the Domestic Violence Bureau, so we're familiar with how important that is. Domestic violence is always a serious issue, and it's something that this particular unit has grown by leaps and bounds. Unfortunately, since its inception.
Now, in that particular service, that would be only Brookhaven East, or do you guys also do in the western towns?
Yes, that's in the western towns as well.
So you do all of Suffolk County in that
Suffolk
department?
County, yeah. So, on any given day, you could be serving an order, like I said, in Montauk, or, conversely, all the way in Huntington.
How is the level of volume and work in that department gotten? Let's talk about the domestic violence issues. Do you think those numbers have been going up, down, holding the same? I mean, because that's obviously an extremely sensitive issue. It involves families and it involves battered husbands, battered wives, spouses, children, etc. So that's a real intricate, role that your office plays.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's something that is going up every year. As the population of this county grows, unfortunately, so does the crime. And so we're no less busy than the year before. The number of orders that we serve grow up every year.
Right, that's unfortunate. Now, you guys also do the judgment end of things. So
Yes.
let's walk through what would be a typical situation there. What somebody is owed money by a contractor or involved in a lawsuit where they win an amount of money, I guess, in district court. Is that where it starts usually?
Right. So we're the enforcement arm of civil court. So if somebody has a judgment against them, we're the ones seeking to enforce that judgment. Or if there is, you have a tenant that needs to be evicted, we're the ones that do that. And the reason being is you don't want, somebody has a judgment, you don't want them enforcing that on their own. That's why it's given to police officers to enforce these orders.
Right. And I imagine that area, unfortunately, due to the economic times, has also been going up, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as people are losing their homes, and it's
a terrible part of your job, I would imagine.
It's absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things that we have to do as deputies that necessarily aren't. It's not a positive interaction, but we try and do it professionally and to the best of our ability.
Yeah. Now, are there backlogs in those areas? I mean, I've heard stories about there's a long wait to have judgments enforced, or there may be evictions. It takes a long period of time. That seems to be a common thing that you hear. I mean, obviously, I know there's a process, and sometimes people confuse that process with a backlog.
Yeah, a lot of times the backlog it's not necessarily a function of our office. It has to do with the amount of time it takes through the courts, and then to go through the various steps that need to happen before the eviction or the enforcement of the judgment can take place.
Yeah, what are those normal? I mean, ballpark. Obviously, nothing I'm holding you to, but just to give our listeners, I mean, from beginning to end, what is a typical situation take in time frame?
I mean, it could take months. It's a case by case basis, but it can take months, and that's it's frustrating for the people who aren't getting their money from the tenants. So they want these people out. So. Yeah. We certainly understand the frustration in that respect.
And then obviously in many of those instances, people that are leaving, do damage to the home, do damage to the property, leave a mess. Right. Now, you guys also handle dealing with that mess too, or that's on the homeowner? Yeah,
a lot of times unfortunately, they'll end up eating some of those costs, which is it's tough, and that's why you want to make sure you do your homework before you rent to somebody who you don't know. It's very important. Yeah, it's
definitely an issue where the homework and the due diligence in the beginning is going to save you a lot of aggravation in the end.
Yes.
I would imagine. I hear horror stories about that.
Yeah.
But, obviously, as the county continues to grow and the population grows and the responsibilities that you guys have and gals have, also seems to grow. Obviously, the 800-pound elephant in the studio was the fact that some time ago, I guess under the last county executive, there was a movement afoot to have your officers, men and women, also patrol the highways. So why don't we talk a little bit about what happened, how you guys did that job, how you were prepared for it, and now you're not doing it. So let's give our listeners a little bit of an education or update on that. We have 3 minutes in this segment, but of course we'll be able to continue the conversation when we come back from the break.
Yeah, so this goes back to 2008. The then county executive, Steve Levy, made a decision to remove Suffolk County Police off of the Long Island Expressway and Sunrise Highway. Our understanding was that the sheriff at the time, and still is Sheriff Vincent DeMarco, that made a decision to put deputy sheriffs on those roadways to fill the void. So there was somebody patrolling those roadways in the interim. Obviously, the police department, filed litigation to have themselves put back on the roadway, and it began a very unfortunate chapter in law enforcement here in the county.
Okay, so that was 2008. Then county executive, so basically 8 years ago, County Executive Levy negotiated with the sheriff's office to take over that responsibility of all highways. So what did that involve for your office? I mean, where did you come up with where did the sheriff's office come up with the resources to do that? Obviously, did you hire more people? Did you move people's responsibilities around? They were doing some of those things already. I mean, obviously, it takes some amount of staffing, I would imagine, to patrol the expressway, to patrol Sunrise Highway. I would imagine it takes, not that your people are not trained, but obviously there was a specific division within the police department, the Highway Patrol Unit, that was trained specifically for that task of the roadways.
Sure. I mean, you had deputies who have been doing enforcement for many years. So, but now you're taking on a big function, highway patrol. So now you're going to need personnel to fill that void. So obviously now the sheriff had to move people around and make this come together rather quickly, because when this happened, this was literally an overnight type of a thing. The highway patrol officers who were working that day were told to come off the roadway, and deputy sheriffs would be coming on, which was a very abrupt change. And obviously the Suffolk County police unions were very upset about it, and
because they had been doing that now since the formation of the police
correct,
department.
since 1960. So I mean, obviously they had a lot of issues with that. If a decision was going to be made to make such a change, which is a huge change, there should have been a transition period, not simply come off the roadway and deputies are going to be going right on there the same day.
Right. I mean, it seemed to be that it probably could have been handled a little better, but because it's such a political issue, we got to take a quick break, and as soon as we come back, we'll continue this conversation.